Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Vegan Spirituality online gathering. My name is Lisa Levinson, and I'm one of your hosts for the evening. And this is our opportunity to explore veganism as a spiritual practice. Our Vegan Spirituality Group is a project of In Defense of Animals, our sustainable activism campaign, which offers emotional and spiritual tools for animal activists and vegans. And we're really delighted to gather together in this way. We also have in-person meetings that gather monthly to explore veganism as a spiritual practice. And if you're interested in joining a group, you can go to the website veganspirituality.com. And under the Groups tab, you'll find groups all across the country in the United States. And that way you can meet fellow vegans who are interested in a spiritual path. So today, I'm very excited to introduce my co-host, and she'll introduce our guest speaker today. We actually do interviews on this online gathering so we can meet different leaders in the vegan spiritual movement. And so my co-host, Judy Carmen, who's the author of Peace to All Beings, she's going to introduce you to our speaker and guest today. Hey, Judy, how are you?
Hi, Lisa. Thank you for introducing me, and it's great to be here, and we're so excited to have Anna Ferguson with us. She is the author of World Peace Yoga, a new book, just came out. The subtitle is Yoga for People Who Breathe, and this is a companion book to Dr. Will Tuttle's World Peace Diet, which probably just about everybody's familiar with that book. So this goes with it, which is a great concept. In addition to being the co-creator of World Peace Yoga Studio in Cincinnati, Anna is also engaged in several evolving paradigms as a co-founder of Heart Montessori, which is a school, a vegan Montessori school where empathy and compassion are taught as part of the core academics. What a fantastic concept that is. And also the Jubilee Animal Sanctuary, which provides a glimpse of what a peaceful world looks like, and the Cincy Veg Fest, which is Cincinnati Veg Fest. It keeps getting bigger every year, I've heard, and it's an annual one-day vegan festival. Anna is active on social media, and you may find her on Facebook and Instagram at Anna Ferguson Peace. So that's ANNAFERGUSON Peace. So we might, I'll bet Lisa could put that in the chat box so everybody could see it. So Anna, it's so good to see you again. It's been a long time since I saw you at a conference that you organized a while back on World Peace Yoga. It was an amazing conference. You have been so busy. So, but to begin, let's talk about your journey to becoming vegan. How did you do that?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. And yes, it's great to see you. My journey to becoming vegan, well, it kind of goes hand in hand with my yoga journey. So I'll kind of share a little bit about both. I was in college and a roommate of mine became vegetarian, and it piqued my interest. Of course, I had some doubts about it and was asking her a lot of questions, but just seeing her vibrancy and feeling healthier, it made me want to explore that a bit for myself. And so I was practicing a vegetarian diet, and that same friend also took me to a yoga class where I delved deeper into yoga, and along my yoga journey, I got introduced to Doug Swenson, who is an amazing yoga teacher, and he was the first yoga teacher that I had that spoke about diet in relationship to yoga and talked about this thing called ahimsa and nonviolence and how it connects to our food choices. And by that time, I was actually already had eliminated animal products from my diet just because it felt good, and I became more aware of my body and through the practice of yoga and how certain things were impacting it. And so I had started to shed those things away, but what really solidified it for me is not just what I was feeling in my body, but was when Doug talked about this concept of ahimsa and the violence involved in food. And then from there, I was like, oh yeah, this vegan thing, I think I'm a vegan. And really, and then I just got to connect more with the practice of ahimsa and how to integrate that into all aspects of my life. So my journey to becoming a vegan was also part of my journey as a yogi as well.
Sorry, that's off. So it kind of happened in tandem together, the two paths. So
Yes.
yeah, yoga and ahimsa, veganism. So so you probably teach this in your yoga classes, and I understand ahimsa is a major part of yoga. How do your students react, and do you have other yoga teachers that you know that have trouble dealing with that concept?
Well, I think that yoga teachers are doing their best to practice a nonviolent lifestyle and practice ahimsa. I think that what has happened in the yoga community is that yoga has become kind of watered down to just poses and exercises. And so the philosophy has sometimes gotten watered down as well. So when practicing ahimsa, it tends to be focused on don't hurt yourself when you're practicing these poses, or give a smile to your neighbor. And these, of course, are really important, wonderful things, but it's essential that the practice be much more than that and really go deeper if we're going to impact the lives of not only ourselves, but others. And one way I like to bring it up in my classes, because the yoga via the asanas, the postures, has become so popular, anytime we can bring spirituality and philosophy into that is a wonderful thing, because you're going to reach more people that way. And so for me, the practice of the poses themselves is in itself a deeply spiritual practice. It's not like, oh, the poses are separate from the spiritual practice, it's part of it. And when we're practicing the poses, we're essentially becoming a cat, a cow, a tree, a cobra, these different aspects of nature, these different animals. And we're essentially putting ourselves in someone else's shoes. And whenever we can put ourselves in someone else's shoes, it develops deeper empathy and compassion. So the poses themselves are really designed for us to become more empathetic and more compassionate people by turning our bodies into these different shapes and these different forms, and to really become one with that form and find that interconnectedness, ultimately without preferences, and to not see one as better than another, but just to see all as one. And that's just the physical practice, which I feel is a deeply spiritual practice. And it's one of the things that I like to talk about in my classes. And I think it's well received. And for those that don't like it, they just probably don't come back. But I think that approaching this practice as one of empathy and compassion, and being able to just widen and widen and widen from ourselves and to our friends, to our family, to our neighbors, and extend till we're reaching all beings.
That is really wonderful. I had really not heard that approach before. So that's what you talk about in your classes. I imagine that impacts your students who aren't vegan to think about the animals that they're becoming in their poses. Have you had much response that way?
Yeah, and I think that that when I'm just speaking about yoga philosophy and kind of the meaning behind the forms, and people are not being told they're right or they're wrong if they do this or they do that, or that this is good or this is bad. You're good if you do this, you're bad if you do this, but just speak from my heart and speak about why I love this yoga practice and the benefits that you receive by becoming these different forms. And the other aspect of it too is that you're intentionally, when you put yourself into these forms, you're intentionally putting stress on your body and practicing handling that stress in a healthy way. And so that combined with the compassion, I think people really connect with that, and it's well received. And it's so far it's been great, and we just keep working to widen those circles.
Right. Yeah. So it's bound to impact people and bring a lot more empathy into their hearts and minds.
Yes.
So, tell us more about this wonderful book. Have you got it there with you? Can you show us the cover?
Do. Yes. So this is my book, and Labor of Love. It's got lots of beautiful art and fun images, sequences, such as this, to take you through your practice. And it's the premise of the book is to create inner peace so that ultimately we can create a more peaceful world. Hence the name World Peace Yoga. But it's really the practices for maintaining that inner peace in the midst of ultimately a very violent world. And the sub-premise, though, is that yoga and veganism are one and the same. And that if you are practicing being conscious and aware of all your actions in your daily life, you're essentially practicing yoga. And that is what, as vegans, we strive to do, is really to be aware of all of our actions and how they're impacting others. And so the book talks a lot about these connections between yoga philosophy and a vegan lifestyle, and how they're intertwined and how they're connected. And then also, I would say in particular for vegan activists, the practices to really maintain that peace, that calm, that feeling of relaxation when you're faced with stress or a difficult conversation or whatever it may be, and that you're able to handle conflict in a kind, compassionate, and peaceful way rather than tightening up and feeling a stress. The tools are here to provide you to really live with that sense of peace and calm in the midst of all of the violence that is around us. And of course, Will Tuttle was a huge inspiration for the book title, and we all know, I'll throw out Will's book, we all know the World Peace Diet, which Will goes deeply into the implications of our food choices and also the connections and roots of spirituality to our food choices. And mine is a lovely companion as it takes us deeper into the yoga, but also the practices, the actual practices of meditation, of conscious breathing, of the different poses, so that we have those practices to really be grounded so that we're not feeling burnout or feeling stressed or feeling whatever it may be from the work that we're doing.
Well, it's beautiful, Anna. It really is. And I've seen some other pages too. I haven't got it yet, so I need to get it. But I think this would be a great tool for all of us to share with, especially with spiritual people who aren't yet vegan, to show them that connection. And a lot of them practice yoga too. And so it would be like another angle to approach them with. So,
Yes, I was just going to say, absolutely. I always recommend to friends of mine that practice yoga, and I said, well, if you have a yoga teacher that's not a vegan yet, this is a great book for them. Or if you've got a friend that's into yoga, this is a great book, because I really approach it from a place of empathy and compassion. And yoga philosophy, it's not about what's right or wrong or good or bad, but what is. And so speaking from that point of view and speaking to how we can live more kinder, gentler, compassionate lifestyles versus a right or wrong perspective. So I feel like it's a great book to introduce to the not yet vegans.
yeah, and also for vegans,
Oh,
because
absolutely.
as we know, our movement needs as much inner peace as we can find. And this is going to be a great help for that too. And that's a
Yeah.
lot of what we talk about on this conference call every month is how do we find that peace? But I wanted to also bring out about your Montessori school, which is totally vegan, as I understand. We actually, in Lawrence, Kansas, have 3 vegan school directors, I guess you could say. 2 of them are Montessori, and one of them is called the School of Love, and all the directors are vegan. But they have the challenges because of the laws where they have to provide animal protein. And I'm just wondering how your school's going. I know everybody would love to hear about it. What a great thing you've done there for little children to help teach them compassion. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so Heart Montessori is a project that is really close to my heart, especially since I have a 4-year-old son and he attends the school, and he's definitely part of the motivation for getting it off the ground. We have a wonderful team that was enthusiastic to make it happen. So I'm just like one part of this team that is really making this a reality. And the school is teaching permaculture, teaching yoga, teaching mindfulness, teaching, giving children tools for how to deal with stress and from a young age. And we don't specifically use the word vegan in our literature about the school. We really focus in on empathy and compassion for all beings, and we serve a plant-based diet. We have a registered dietitian that reviews our menu, and we get a little stamp of approval for that, and the kids eat really delicious meals, and it's been really wonderful. This school year, we're doing ages 3 to 6. We're expanding to 6 to 9 in the years to come, and yeah, we're just really enthusiastic about it, and the kids just love it. We're solid in the Montessori curriculum, which is tried and true, and then bring the elements of empathy and compassion for all beings. And so one of the ways we do that, for example, is through the materials, obviously making sure that they're sustainable, eco-friendly, and vegan, but also in the language that we use, not using speciesist language, and also in the really reviewing all the materials in the books. For example, the cultural indoctrination of kids that usually there's books on farm animals, there's books on wild animals, there's books on animals for pets, or of course those books don't say companion animals, but what we're working to do is kind of vet those things and not have this separation. and just talk about all beings, all animals, what they're like. And so that's just a little example of how we're integrating that into the academic curriculum.
That's really great, Anna, and what a great model that you're providing for other teachers who really want to do this and have various things in the way of doing that. So, and how important it is to start them when they're little, to be able to speak that way, like you said, non-speciesist, and embrace all beings as
Yes.
part of our family. Yeah. So, and also, you're so busy. Tell us about the Cincy Veg Fest. You said that there's a spiritual component to that. So how do you integrate that into the Veg Fest?
Right. So, so Judy, we met at the event that Mark Stroud and I founded, the Jubilee Peace Fest, and you presented there. And there was a deep focus of spirituality at this event, bringing together yogis, bringing together animal rights activists, bringing together vegan musicians, healthy food. And the idea was to connect all these things together and have this spiritual focus. And we did that event for 5 years, and it was always super inspiring. But it was a 3-day event, and it was there was a charge to get into the event. And the last year of the event, I was actually pregnant with my son, who is 4 now, and it was such an enormous effort to pull off. And after I had him, we just had to say, we had to let this go. So the Cincy Veg Fest kind of evolved from the Jubilee Peace Fest. But the Cincy Veg Fest is a 1-day event, and it's free and open to the public. So we're reaching more people, and we have sponsors. And so just an example of what we're doing this year as part of the event is there'll be a panel on veganism and spirituality, and you might be familiar with Holly Scotus. She founded Yoga is Vegan, and she'll be speaking at the event. And Julie Kirkpatrick, she is, I'm going to pull up an image. She's an artist from New York, and this is an image, a collage. She does collage art. This is an image that she created. She did a lot of the collage art in my book. She's also a Jivamukti yoga teacher, and she will be part of that panel, as will Will Tuttle. And so, and we're also going to be showing the film A Prayer for Compassion at the Esquire Theater. So, yeah, we're really working to bring that element in because, as we know, there's a lot of burnout in the vegan community, and I've just found from my personal experience that people that have a strong spiritual practice, which is strong in self-care, are really the ones that keep the joy, keep the enthusiasm, keep the momentum to really take the movement forward, and we really got to have more of that.
Yeah, we definitely do. Well said. And that leads right into my next question, because we often talk about this in our interviews, our conference calls, because that's one of the purposes of vegan spirituality, is helping each of us do self-care and find a spiritual balance. And so what I want to ask you, because obviously you're so productive and you're getting so much done in the face of all this that we all look at and face, and all the suffering that we're aware of. So how do you keep your balance, and what tips do you have for everybody listening in?
Yeah, great question. Thank you. So what I do has certainly changed. As I mentioned, I have a 4-year-old son, Noah, and of course he's now in school, which is wonderful, and it gives me gives me more time to do things throughout the day for myself. And so here, a few things that are just basic things that I do that I always fit in, or not always, but for the most part fit in every day is one is to, when I wake up in the morning, to have a cup of tea or juice or whatever kind of drink I'm having that morning, and to drink that juice or drink that tea without checking my phone, without checking my email, without doing anything but just that one thing. And to just allow myself that time to not multitask and to simply do one thing. And so that's often how I start my day. And I definitely like to do things in the morning in terms of physical exercise. And I love to get in at least 20 minutes to an hour of physical activity, and that could be taking a walk outside, or it could be practicing yoga poses, or it could be a variety of different things. And then there's two go-tos that I have that usually I spend 5 to 10 minutes in. One is legs up the wall, where you lie down on your back and you put your feet up, and that is just a super calming, relaxing pose. Turns your world upside down. And I love also the philosophy of this pose, which the actual translation of it is reversing attitude pose. And the idea is to look at things from a different perspective. And it's another one of those developing empathy and compassion, seeing things in a different way, seeing things from the perspective of others. So I like to always turn myself upside down for about 5 or 10 minutes every day. And also seated meditation. And I think that's really essential, to just sit and be quiet and let the thoughts come in and let them pass, but just to allow that time to sit, even if it's just for 1 minute. I try to do 5 to 10 minutes a day, but if nothing else, I would recommend that when someone first gets out of bed, that before they do anything else, before they check their phone, before they turn on the computer, before they do anything, to just sit in their bed and be silent for 1 minute. And that's the beginning of a practice.
Oh, thanks, Anna. Those are great, great ideas, and we all need to do those things for sure. So I am thinking that I'll bet there's a lot of questions out there from people, so I don't want to take up any more time for me. So have you got anything else you wanted to add before we open up for questions?
I think we can go ahead and open it up. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Lisa, are you ready?
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Anna, for sharing your special tips. I actually took notes while you were sharing that, because I'm going to add those things to my morning routine. And it's very helpful to just know the process of how you created your book and the festivals that you work together on. And I have to say that I went to the World Peace Yoga Jubilee as well. And I drove there from Philadelphia to Cincinnati, which was a long drive, but totally worth it. It was so nice to have a place of peace and harmony, and I just am so glad that it's continuing in the Cincinnati Veg Fest. That's very exciting.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so we've had a couple comments. I just want to let folks know who are in the webinar with us that you're welcome to ask Anna any questions you'd like to, or share any comments. You can do so in the chat box, or if you're with us on the phone, you can press *4 and that will unmute your microphone. If you're also on the webinar with us, you can go to the top of the page with your cursor and you can unmute your video, then we can see you and your microphone. That's really fun too. And if you're with us on Facebook Live, go ahead and type your question right into the chat box there. And it looks like we've got a question in our chat box, so thank you. This is from Sarah, and she asks, when is the Cincinnati Veg Fest? And she has a brother and niece that might be into it.
Oh, awesome. It's May 18th, and it's at Burnout Woods in Clifton.
Perfect. That sounds great. So tell everyone you know if they're in the Cincinnati area to come and celebrate, vegan life and learn all about it. That would be a really fun time. So we did have a person who made a comment on the Facebook Live about when you were sharing your self-care tools, they were also adding in there that it helps to go to sanctuaries and spend time there with their friends and also with the animal friends that are there, and to spend time with their own companion animals, that really helps them by being in places where they can enjoy nature, walking and hiking, and just getting physical activity. So it's sort of in line with what you were sharing too about physical activity, but also you included rest in there, like a resting pose, which is really nice.
Yeah, and actually the Jubilee Animal Sanctuary with which Mark Stroud and Betsy Heithouse run, they which is connected to the projects that we're working on. We really feel that that sanctuary is for all beings, humans included. Like, it's a sanctuary for all of us. And actually, the kids at the Montessori school, they visit there once a month to have that experience of connecting in nature and growing food and seeing wild animals, seeing the rescued horses, and yeah, it's a wonderful treat, wonderful gift.
Oh, nice. Gosh, there's so many amazing projects that you're involved in. It sounds like Cincinnati would be a great place to visit for all these wonderful, wonderful new, the Montessori school and the sanctuary. Everything is really set up for vegan life there, which is great.
Absolutely. Come on, visit.
Yeah, come on down. So have you had any, like, being a yogini, have you interacted with other yoga professionals, and how do they respond to your vegan message? And do you ever get any people who are confrontative, or maybe in a yoga way, just concerned?
There is definitely resistance in the yoga community, and I just focus on speaking from my heart and doing my own thing, and I don't really pay much attention to the drama or the resistance or whatever it may, or the criticism, because there's definitely criticism out there for taking a stand on a vegan lifestyle, and we just keep doing it, and the studio really approaches it from a point of view of empathy and compassion, and there's definitely resistance, but we're just working through it.
Well, that's beautiful. That's what yoga is all about, is, working through the postures, working through these conversations that we have with one another. And I think it's very groundbreaking what you're doing. It's that vegan revolution through yoga. I noticed that when I was at the Jubilee years ago, that was the one thing I took back with me, was that people who are doing yoga, they're practicing yoga, but they're not vegan, are here and they're learning about it. They're trying the food, and it was pretty well attended. And I thought that was going to have a ripple effect in the yoga community. And I think that's really so much about what you're doing with all your projects, is creating these beautiful ripples of compassion everywhere.
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, most of the people that practice at our studio are not vegan. Many of the people that come to our vegan potlucks are not vegan, but we create a welcoming environment where everyone is welcome, no matter who they are or what they eat. And when people feel welcomed and included, I think that's really important, and to do that and to embrace all others. And so it's a huge community that is that huge yoga community that's not vegan, and we just are doing our best to welcome everyone and give them the gift of yoga and open their hearts even more.
That's so nice. It's really important what you're doing, and it's great to have it in that area of the country. How do you feel about having this, yoga vegan world of light and love in the I don't know if it's the heartland, but it's in the central area of the country.
Well, I mean, sometimes I feel like, oh my gosh, what the heck am I doing in Cincinnati? But my family's here. My family's in Ohio, and I like to be close to my family. The community we built is here, and that's the amazing thing, is that I really feel like if you can do it in Cincinnati, you can do it anywhere. And so the community here is so strong that why would I want to go anywhere else? Although I have to admit, when I visit my sister in LA and just the myriad of vegan restaurants and options and possibilities, I'm just like, oh my gosh. But we're making it happen in Cincinnati, which means we can do this anywhere, which is what's inspiring.
That is inspiring and very impressive. It's like you just created all this, your community, and now there's living, breathing vegans there. And I think this is like that vegan diaspora. Here we are, all these people who are vegan, that we've traveled out to all these different remote areas and are trying to, spread the gospel of love and compassion.
Yep,
Hi, Suzanne.
absolutely.
I could see her there for a minute.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi.
Hi, Judy.
Oh,
And
it's
hi,
great to see
Anna.
Hello.
I was
Hi,
going to,
Suzanne.
I didn't know how to join it without interrupting, so I was just fiddling around with the video. Can I make a comment?
Yes, please. That's exactly what we hope that you're going to do, is make a comment and
Great,
fiddle
good.
around a little.
Well, it's wonderful to see Lisa and Judy, who I know, and wonderful to meet you, Anna.
Oh, great to meet you too.
So first of all, I've been practicing yoga for, 40 years probably. And I'm kind of astonished that all that time I never thought to inhabit the cat, to inhabit the cow, to inhabit the cobra. So thank you so much for that. That was really wonderful. It's always amazing how our minds are like shut to certain things. We're not open, I should say. So, and then the other thing I wanted to say is that I'm a psychologist, and I am a vegan psychologist, but that's not how I advertise myself. And most of the people who come to see me along the way learn that I'm vegan or that I eat a plant-based diet. So I was interested in Judy asking, how people who come to you, how they respond to that. And in all the years that I've been vegan and also a psychologist, people ask me questions, but I don't think anybody has ever adopted that lifestyle. And so I realized that I have feelings about that, wishing that my work was more aligned with my veganism. So it's not specific to you, Anna. I know that you're doing work that is aligned in some ways, but that's not how you promote yourself. And the same thing with me. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah. So one of these days, I'm hoping that I can do something that is completely aligned with it, because that is my spiritual path, I would say, my veganism, as Lisa knows.
Yes, and I will say that Suzanne has been to organize our vegan spirituality group in Philadelphia, and so that would definitely be aligned with that purpose.
Oh, it is. Yeah. And I was at a book club last night at a library nearby, and we had read a wonderful book called The Sound of a Wild Snail Eating, which, if you have not read it, is such a beautiful book. It's about a woman who is extremely ill, a young woman, and a friend of hers brings a pot of violets into her room where she literally cannot get out of bed. She's so sick. And as she's walking through the woods, she, at the last minute, picks a snail up and puts it in the pot of violets. And this woman develops a relationship with the snail and credits the snail in some ways for saving her life, where she had gone from being this vibrant woman touring around Europe and became ill and literally could not sit up. That's how sick she was. And so last night in conversation at this book club, a few people said, well, after reading this book, I can never eat another snail. So then we got into a conversation about what we eat. So it was very, very interesting. And I did hand my card, the vegan spirituality card out, not my psychology card out, to a bunch of people. And you're right, Lisa, that is where I feel that I can be completely aligned with my values. So
yeah, and one thing that I've found is a lot of people go through our yoga teacher training program that have jobs that are maybe they're not ideal job, or maybe they are, but they're liking to bring their yogic lifestyle more into their job. Yeah. And so I think there are creative ways to do that, and sometimes it's just in the in simple things, like you have maybe you have a poster in your office, or some things that would be like, oh, that's interesting, and well, of course, you're usually probably one-on-one with people, but yes. In other offices, when people, sometimes there's larger rooms, people eat lunch and people are interested, oh, what are you eating? Or, so there are definitely ways to bring it into the work that we're doing. And it just I think requires more creativity for how we're going to do that. And sometimes it's just in our demeanor and the way, and in the way we are and what we say and things like that.
Well, I do get that with, so I'm older, I'm 68, and a lot of people will ask me how it is that I stay fit and look healthy, etc. And I will tell them how I do it. Yeah. And I also leave literature around in my waiting area, things like that. So I get the word out as much as I can. That's without beating people over the head with it.
And Suzanne, you're a real inspiration, I think, to many people for that reason. It's really, I think that's something that all of us have to remember. Just by being ourselves in this world, we are like sharing the vegan message and the love, and by being kind and compassionate, I think it's helpful for people, because even if they don't know we're vegan and they're communicating with us and they think of us as a nice person, then at some point they might find out and say, oh, she's vegan and she's quite, nice, or she seems to be very open-minded or easy to talk to. And then that idea may come along with them when they hear vegan as a word next time. So I think it's also helping our activist community to grow as really the army of the kind, or the loving warriors in some way. And I just adore that story about the snail. That is so profound. It's like that there's like a healing that was happening there, and that snail is like really seems as though it was such a sacred relationship between the snail and
it was
the person.
Amazing. I know. And in this discussion last night, people were analyzing the book, this, that, and that. And I said, I think she fell in love.
Yeah.
And that is what happened. It was the only live thing in that room with her. I mean, there was the plant. And it's really worth reading. It's a reverence for this creature.
Oh,
It's quite amazing.
Really says so much about veganism and vegan spirituality. It is that reverence that's there in all
Yes.
sentient beings, and that she developed this great connection in that moment. And I think that those moments where we connect deeply with other animals are part of the basis for many of our spiritual journeys. Is that wow, I had this deep connection with this a bee, or I have a friend who had a
Yes.
connection with a fly. I mean, these are, and we think of the animals. They're all spiritual beings, just like we are, and like we are very different. All humans. Some humans like to party. Some people are very spiritual. So the animals are the same. Some of them you may come
Yes.
across a snail who's like a Buddha, or a true
Yep.
healer. And so I think that when we have that openness to the spirituality of all beings, that possibility, and have moments of connection, it can be uh, not only healing, but just expanding, like that circle of compassion. It changes our
Yes.
view. Yes.
Well,
So,
it was pretty funny because Debbie and Cheryl were so the three of us were there and a group of about 15 or 17. And so when the conversation took the turn that it did, at some point I said, well, there are three vegans sitting right next to each other if you want to ask us questions.
That's
So,
great.
yes,
it
yes.
was
So
fun.
that's lovely vegan advocacy in those
Yes,
personal moments. And also,
yes.
Anna, I know, so she's been hosting a vegan spirituality group at her studio, and is planning
Oh,
to organize it coming up. So I want to
Yeah,
thank
we're
you
looking
again.
forward to
wonderful.
doing that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
One
Well,
more
Lisa
amazing
started
vegan
ours
thing.
in
Yeah,
Philadelphia, and we're keeping it going. And
that's
Yay.
awesome.
we love it. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, thank you, Suzanne, and to everyone who's leading or participating in a vegan spirituality group. It's that opportunity to have those moments and those discussions, and to really explore, what does veganism mean as a spiritual practice. And I think as
Yes.
the movement grows, we'll have more and more need for that spiritual connection to our vegan practices, because it's such a big life decision that people make, and to understand that connection with ahimsa, being kind to all beings,
Hmm.
is a wonderful
Yes.
path. So yeah, well, wanted to check and see if we had any other questions. I know that just seeing if looks like with the chat. We did have Victoria mentioned that practicing Reiki with animals is also a really beautiful way to support our well-being and also the animals. So if you are familiar with that, it's a hands-on healing technique, and it's actually simple to learn this technique, and it's something that you can do with animals. Also, you can do it if you see an animal who's hurt or injured. So it's a wonderful skill to bring in that very harmonious, balancing energy to animals who are suffering, or just to those who are healthy, to improve the health and well-being. So I'm
And
wondering, Anna, yeah,
I'm
go ahead.
sorry, this is Victoria,
Hi,
and I'm
Victoria.
sorry my video is not working right now.
Oh, that's okay.
Do you mind if I say a little bit of something about
Please, please.
working with animals? Well, first let me say I'm so thrilled to have found this group because Reiki is a spiritual practice, and as a vegan, also, it's Reiki is such an important part of my life, in particular, practicing with animals. And it's something that I find to be very comforting and supportive, not only for me and my daily practice, my well-being, but it really, really is supportive for animals. And honestly, Reiki with animals is not as a hands-on practice with animals, but right now. But I just mainly wanted to say thank you to all of you for this beautiful gathering. Um, Maybe sometime I can talk a little bit more about the practice of Reiki with animals and how it can support all of us, just in our well-being every day, but also vegans and especially folks who are activists and doing And Anna, I wanted to say also, I'm from Cincinnati originally. I live in Portland, Oregon now.
Oh, wow,
The
great.
last time, yeah, it'll be in Cincinnati in May. Actually, I'm teaching an animal Reiki class at a small sanctuary there outside of Cincinnati. It's the Foreverland Farm Sanctuary. I'll be
Yeah,
there.
they'll actually be at our Veg Fest.
Yes, that's the weekend I'm there. So I'm teaching. It's
Oh,
a 2-day
great.
class, and so I'll be at the Veg Fest after the class that Saturday. But I'm so surprised to hear that there's such an active group in Cincinnati because the last time I was there about 2.5 years ago, I couldn't find anything. So I'll be at the Veg Fest. Will you be there? Because I'll come and look for you if you're
Yes,
there.
yes.
Okay.
Connect with me on social media too, and also
Okay.
I'll love to connect you with Amber Eller. She does the Reiki trainings at our studio,
Mm-hmm.
and she is also uh, well, a vegan, and it's also part of the training about being a clean vessel for Reiki energy and how veganism is a component to that. So
Mm-hmm.
it's also integrated into our Reiki training as well as
Good.
our yoga trainings.
That's wonderful. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
Oh, this is
yeah.
so great. Well, thank you, Victoria, for sharing about that. And feel free to reach out to me too, either on social media. Maybe you could share your love of Reiki with us sometime. That would be beautiful.
Thank
Um,
you.
and then I also want to invite Anna, if you'd like to do, we're coming towards the close of our gathering today, and if you'd like to do either a closing prayer or reading or blessing us, that would be really lovely.
Thank you. Yeah, actually, I thought I would read from my book, which this is the layout for a peaceful world meditation. So I won't read the whole thing because it'll take too long, but I'll read part of it. So you can just take a moment to be still. If you'd like, you may soften your eyes to assist with connecting with the vision. And just allow your jaw to relax, allow your facial muscles to relax. And take a moment to consider, what does a peaceful world sound like? Do you hear laughter and joyful conversation? What kind of music is playing? Do you hear birds singing, fellow animals communicating in their own language, rivers flowing, and the wind blowing through trees? What does a peaceful world feel like? Feel the sun's warmth, the rain's soothing touch, and a cool breeze on a hot day. Feel the touch of a newborn baby's skin. Feel safe, feel secure, feel sure of yourself. What does a peaceful world smell like? Smell the budding flowers, green grass, the aroma of a gentle breeze and clean waters. Smell the fresh morning dew and the evergreen forests. Smell the fragrance of fresh herbs like thyme, rosemary, basil, and parsley. What does a peaceful world taste like? Taste a summer rainstorm and the salty air from an ocean breeze. Taste the quietness of a freshly laid blanket of snow as you warm up with a hot cup of tea. Taste the lightness of the food that you eat and notice how you feel. What does a peaceful world look like? Are we replenishing the natural world and replanting the forests? Are wild creatures returning to their homes? Do you see a world where all beings have enough to eat? Are we rewarded in abundance for our kind energies? Do you see the sameness in all people, all species, and all lives? Are you embracing mutually beneficial relationships? Do you respect all beings? Then take a moment to visualize the world around you. In this peaceful world, how do you speak to others? How do you interact with fellow beings? Do you feel a sense of connectedness with the greater Earth community? And just visualize yourself living in this way, in harmony with all of life. See yourself being this change in the world and creating peace on Earth. And then just take a moment to reflect upon what peace means to you. Thank you.
Oh, wow. Anna, that was lovely. Thank you so very much. That is like the perfect way to end our gathering tonight. Just so deeply really enmeshed in the visuals that you shared with us. It was so beautiful.
Oh, thank you so much.
And thank you for sharing a little bit of your life story with us and about your new book. We're so excited. We'll all hopefully go get that, World Peace Yoga.
Yes, and you can get it right now at worldpeaceyogabook.com.
Thank you. And the pictures are fabulous. Even just the photos alone, the images and the artwork is just gorgeous. It's been a true delight to have you as part of our gathering this time, and we hope that everyone who's joined us will return next month. Each month we interview a different spiritual leader in our community. Who knows? It could be Victoria coming up one of these days. And I really want to wish everyone a lovely evening. Vegan blessings to all. I hope you have a good night. Take care, everyone.
Yes,
Thanks
thank
so
you.
much.
Good night.
Namaste.
Namaste.